Hey, welcome, Brian. Good to see you.
So glad to be here. Thanks for the time.
Of course, yeah. So, Brian, I pre-recorded an intro for you. I know that you've worked with Tony Robbins. I know you've worked with the NFL, and we kind of stated that in the intro. But how'd you get started in all of this? How did you get so involved? Because it's really been your life's work at this point.
Yeah, 31 years this year. It's me being only 32 years old. I mean, all right, never mind. Okay, going on 55 and still kicking it. But it's I can tell you, I got lucky back in '91, coming out of university, athletic training, exercise phys, and you're going, I know everything. And to be honest, if I was detrimentally honest with people, would be I didn't know squat. Honestly, it was
Mhm.
one of those things where my brain didn't work. Let me just put a period behind that. My brain didn't work.
Right.
That's where we'll get into the biohacking and talking about that later, from anywhere from bulletproof coffee to water immersion, all that stuff. But I luckily ran into someone like Peter Gosky who was patient enough with me to really teach the functional alignment importance, the idea behind how someone can be in chronic pain, and more importantly, why they're in chronic pain versus here's the pain, here's how we fix it. And then honestly, walked us down a path of you've got to find the person's how. How does doing a GOSCU affect me long term? Which takes them into a compelling future and all that. So I luckily ran into this back in the early 90s and haven't turned back.
How would you describe Agassi to somebody that's never heard of it before? Like, what would the, I guess, elevator pitch for Agassi be?
Well, first of all, I won't be grading them on the spelling nor the pronunciation.
Right.
I get a Gusku, a Gisque, blah blah blah, all this other stuff. But it's a Basque based name where Pete came from in Spain. His family did, and the whole Igascu method is based on Pete's injuries coming out of the Vietnam War, which we know was a major conflict and has its own political ramifications left and right. But what it did, such a blessing. Somebody aimed in the right direction and picked Pete off. And left hip, left knee, left hamstring injuries, all that stuff with AK 47s and grenade shrapnel, apparently. And its own PTSD that came with it, in the sense of, I'm stuck this way, I'm in trouble, I'm going to forever be like this. And then being able to walk himself back and say, wait a minute, why am I giving so much control to somebody else over my future? And that's when he picked up Gray's Anatomy, started studying human anatomy, putting one and one together to equal two versus not even being allowed to look at the number system. So he started thinking, honestly, my foot is collapsed. That brings my knee in. That shuts my hip off. Then my shoulder takes over. Well, wouldn't it make sense not to just strip away the shoulder compensation or adaptation, but to reestablish the hip, knee, and ankle relationship? So that's how it started almost over 50 years ago in 1971 when he finally realized I can't rely on allopathic medicine because remember, they are human beings and technology hadn't caught up with anybody at that point. We didn't even have that kind of stuff back in early 70s. I was 3 years old, by the way. And
So did
Pete,
Pete? Oh, sorry to interrupt, but so Pete really didn't have medical training going into this. It was more just I've got to fix myself for the sake of because no one else is going to do it, right?
100%. In fact, he will tell you flat out, don't embarrass the medical field by tying my name to it.
Right.
He goes, these guys are artists, these guys are experts in what they're trained in
Right.
and what their life work wants to be. The problem is, it took someone like Pete Agoscu coming in with no blinders on to really open up the word functional, to really open up the word the body should be balanced. And it's been embraced by a lot of people, which is great. You have the Kelly Starrett's, the Gray Cooks, the functional words being thrown around left and right, which was our goal back in the 90s when I hooked up with them in 91. Around 95, 6, 7, we started saying, we got to create more people like us, or at least get their line of thinking. We got to shift the paradigm. I know it's a egotistical, could be looked at as an egotistical idea, but it was out of necessity. because there was only so much of Pete Egoscue, and then eventually only so much of Brian Bradley, and then only, again, how many clinics that we have around the world, 20 something, you know what I mean? Like that's
Right.
not enough. So now we train people in probably, I won't say every country on earth, but we have a lot.
So about early on in that experience with Pete, so I don't know what the year was, but I'm guessing probably 92, 93. Somebody came in to see Pete and they were late for their appointment and ended up seeing you. And that that changed things pretty dramatically, I would say, not only for you, but for the business in general. I'm sure it was already thriving, but this kind of took it in a different direction. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the reason why it was thriving is because Pete Egoscue literally plowed, bulldozed a road that had never been bulldozed or plowed. I mean, literally, it was new territory. Start asking the customer about their pain, start listening to the customer, start asking why about everything, question everything as it relates to your pain to only help your healthcare professional, not prove them wrong.
Hmm.
When you go in to see a physical therapist and you go in and say, I don't know why my back hurts, I have no information for you, it becomes guesswork at that point for the PT. They have to go through all this protocol and jump through all these hoops, versus the very good ones will say to you, unacceptable answer. I have a question for you. Does it hurt when you do this, this, or this? And that gives you enough information. So when I ran into in 1992-ish, 3-ish, when Tony Robbins and I first met up, he had come in at 5'10". Now, if anybody knows him, he's 6'7".
Right.
But when you're bent over, and we purposefully were in a building without an elevator on the second floor because we wanted people to be challenged, even if we had to carry them up the stairs. By the time they leave, they should be able to walk down and up those stairs again. That's part of their
Wow.
success story. Such a great idea. Discovery was amazing. And for Tony, he had just been bucked off a horse playing polo, which I want to see the horse that he was riding because the thing had to be massive.
No doubt.
Um, but the idea of chronic hip and back pain was unacceptable to him. Shooting an infomercial the next day, and I had no idea who he was. Like literally zero. I had no idea. Now, he's the billion-dollar man running around feeding 10 million people, 10 billion people, sorry, speaking in every country on earth about, compelling futures. Well, strategically, I had no idea who he was business-wise, nor did I know, I didn't watch infomercials, stuff like that back in the day. He's not a motivator. He's a strategist. And so for him, the strategy was, I got to find something to pull me out of this. So he very smartly learned, I've got to go see Egoscue because I'm hurt. And it just happened to be on the way back to his house, which was the castle in Del Mar, all that stuff. And luckily we met up. And that changed everything for Egoscue and changed everything for Robbins personally and business-wise. And anybody who follows Tony Robbins right now through the events, they get to see my pretty face, which I'm sorry about that. That's only, I have the face that only a mother could love. But that's what you're stuck with, but the result is worth it. It's literally a game changer. You're talking to the most selfish human on the planet. I would not be hanging out here for 30 some years with Pete Egoscue in this work if it didn't have such profound effects, and neither would he.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have me if I wasn't doing the same thing, and he wouldn't be teaching the method if it didn't literally change people's lives.
Yeah. So going back to that, so when Tony came in, so he finds Pete because Tony likes new things, right? Tony likes not just new things, but he likes things that challenge the norm. He likes things that are different. So I'm assuming that's how he found you guys. It's like, hey, I'm messed up, and there's somebody doing something a little bit different than just giving me back pills and going suggesting surgery, things like that, which would not be up Tony's alley. So he comes in to see you guys. My understanding is he was pretty late for that appointment, and that's how you got thrown in there, right? Like, was he supposed to come in and meet Pete, and Pete got tired of waiting on him?
Yeah, Pete's a hardcore Marine,
Yeah.
back in the day, and if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late.
Right.
And he just said to me, he goes, "Look, Tony's coming in. You're going to work with him." And I go, "Who?"
Right.
And he said, "Tony." And I said, "Okay, no big deal. I won't go to the gym tonight. No big deal." Blah, blah, blah. Hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Then finally he walks in. But you have to understand, back then I didn't take things like that personally.
Right.
he wasn't doing it to me. For some
Sure.
reason, it made sense. For some reason, the universe lined us up and put me in that position versus maybe one of my colleagues who would have been like, F this, I'm out of here. I don't wait for anybody. I didn't have an ego. I had my own stuff going on, significance wise, things like that, but we all do. I just figured I could do a bunch of other things until that person gets there. And you know what? I was doing it as a favor to Pete. And this was one of his friends, Tony. And hey, who am I to judge this? And I had respect enough for my boss at that time, Pete Agoscu, the guy that I'm in business with, to look at it and say, this guy respects this guy, and I'll call him up. And the funny part was me calling Pete up and going, bro, who the hell is this guy? He keeps hitting himself. Now, what he meant by hitting himself was his power move was something to change his mental state. So he did a physical move to do that. And I would joke with him and go, well, no wonder your back's in a spasm. If I was hitting myself like that, I would too. We're joking. I'm trying to get the state to change. I didn't know it was state change. I was just trying to bring some stupid dad humor into it to get his mindset off of the injury and into maybe our bodies can heal. And when we were done, that's exactly what happened. He stood up to 6'7". You got to be kidding me. Thank you so much. I mean, unbelievably gracious. And I just said, look, it's no big deal, buddy. This is what I do for a living. But I can tell you from a significant standpoint, now I know we're going to get into some leadership questions and things like that. A lot of people view significance as a negative. Like, you need people telling you, like they define it as, you're not successful if people aren't telling you how successful you are.
Right.
I didn't need that.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, it feels good when somebody says, my life will never be the same because of what you did. And then I reverse that into, you mean what you did.
Right.
Because I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Your injury was an opportunity, a gift that put us together so that now I'm in your corner to help coach you through this process.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, my superpowers are two things. One is ADHD, which we'll get into on how I kind of use that as a superpower. And secondly is how to use significance or a need for the accolade back in the day. A need for it made me work harder and made me work smarter versus having it be, I need to be in the spotlight and that's who I am and stuff like that. That's just not it.
Right.
But something like this, like even your podcast, I'm looking at it going, you realize how many people, Brian, you're going to infect with Agoscu today and give the opportunity to live a compelling future, one with no limitations, live pain-free, be able to pick up their grandkids, be able to pick up their nieces and nephews, be able to get through the holidays where stress is crushing them, and physiologically have their bodies support their mental and emotional side. So, it's nothing but fun for me.
Well, I think to close out on the Tony part of your story, I'm curious. So from those early meetings, because now, Brian, you've been at, I don't know what seminars you aren't at, because I sort of feel like every Robbins seminar, are you at every Robbins seminar? I feel like you're at almost every seminar.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it pretty much. COVID was such a gift on that because I believe, and I don't think Tony would tell you anything different, it almost like COVID saved his life because of the travel was cut down and all that other stuff. And I think that it also saved a lot of other people's lives because it put Agoscu in front of millions of people who I get DMs on my Instagram all the time saying, thank you so much for what you've done. And I have to turn it around and say, I appreciate the kind words.
Right.
But pat yourself on the back because you're doing the work.
Sure. Well, and I think going back to the significance part of that you were just talking about, I think there's a big difference when people are chasing significance. We talk about this a lot on the show, chasing it, significance for the sake of significance. How many likes did I get? How much, the visual, what is the visual of it versus, hey, I feel significant because I'm doing something that matters in the world, or I'm contributing, or I'm of service. And we all need that. And that always feels good. I'll tell you, I found you guys, I had seen you doing the weird little exercises, after the breaks at all the seminars, and then your table was always busy, your booth was always busy. And I was training for a New York marathon. This is probably 7-8 years ago. And I walked, and it finally wasn't busy. I was just in between breaks, and you were just standing there, and I was like, oh, hey, I think I'd like to do this. I'm probably fine. I'm probably I'm probably good because I'm athletic and everything. And I went in and I kind of knew in the back of my mind that I wasn't, and immediately started working with you guys. I lived in Arizona at the time, and bought a package of appointments out there. And I got to tell you, when I say I was training for the marathon, I was sort of done training for the marathon, in the sense that I didn't think I was going to be able. I think when I stopped by the table, I was like, I was training for this marathon. You said, "How's it going?" I said, "Not well. Like, I think I'm gonna have to stop." But I still didn't think there was actually anything wrong with me. I just thought I had overtrained, right? So then you kind of showed me what was going on. I actually never followed up with you on this, I don't think. But we had talked since then, but I don't know if we specifically talked about this marathon. But I started doing the prescribed exercises. So if you're a patient of Vygotsky and you go in, I don't know if I'd call it a patient, but if you're a client, let's say of Vygotsky, yeah,
Yeah, because
and you
patient
go in,
means sick.
exactly.
Patient means something's broken, and that's not you when you walk in to see us.
I noticed me catching that. I knew you wouldn't like that word, but so I went in as a client, and great knowledgeable staff. Not that it matters, but it happened to be the people I worked with had an athletic background, played college sports, and for me, I kind of like that because they seemed to know physiology really well, and had me do a number of different exercises on the floor, none with hands on me, all completely like just through me and watching what I did, and then recommended different things. And each week I would go and we would build on this routine until I finally had one that, like, for the last 5, 6 years I've been using. And I not only ended up running that marathon, but ran a few more afterwards. And running marathons now isn't something that I do only because I don't want to, not because I can't. And from that first time I met you, I mean, that's been probably close to 10 years ago now. So it's kind of cool being, now in my later 50s and able to still do this stuff, and it really is due to that. And I love the idea of we can just correct ourselves. We don't need shots, we don't need pills typically to do it.
Well, and we were talking about allopathic medicine, Pete's injuries before, typical traditional healthcare. If everybody who's listening to this could sit back and just ask this question: what's your view of healthcare? What's your view of your insurance? What's your view of your doctors, your PTs, your chiropractors, your acupuncturists, and I know there's going to be a lot of negative. And I can promise you, okay, I can't promise you. I was going to say 100% of those people, but it's close, went into that field because they had a healing mentality and they wanted to serve and help people.
Right.
They got caught up within a system that just doesn't work. So when someone says to me, "Hey, Brian, do you take insurance?" And I go, "No, that's why it works."
Right.
Because when you pay attention. When you pay attention. Whether that's you go out and buy the $18 pain-free book over my right shoulder, or you DM me on Instagram and I take a look at your photographs and then we move you into a digital thing, or anything. The idea is that you're making an investment in yourself. And that's what you did. And so when you think about that, I love the story. I'll never run a marathon in my life. Like, I'm just not that dumb. So, I get in my car and I drive it. But for those of you who love that mental grind, in fact, my CEO is an Olympic level marathon runner. She's running, I'm not joking. I did a slow pace. I only did about, I only ran it around a 6-mile pace, 6-minute mile pace for the, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you did what?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then they're dropping into the 5s, then they're dropping into the 4s, and you can see where these elite runners are. They're unbelievable. But the whole idea is to get your body as balanced as possible so that when you do make a decision to do something, you can correct your posture, you can then condition your posture, and then you can reap the benefits on the back end. And look, I have a little thing that I would help with you at the marathon. You'd be running, and you'd see me on 17 and a half miles. And I would say, "Ken, I'm right here." And you go, "Hey, Brian, thanks for coming." Meanwhile, your elbow's chicken winging out there. Your left foot's doing this because the wall's coming at 18 miles.
Right.
I would have a little tent right at the 18-mile point and make you come over. "Ken, please walk over here. Let's do 4 minutes of exercise to gain 35 on the back end." So you either grudgingly finish the 8 miles and barely finish, or we reestablish a new body at 18 miles at the wall. We rename it the reset. Get over that wall. Now all of a sudden your arm's not chicken winging anymore. Your left hip's no longer shut down and your foot's not collapsed.
Right. I should have had you at my Boston qualifier. I definitely hit that wall at 18, 19. It was
Buddy,
tough.
there's so much that could be done right there. It is
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
and literally could happen within 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. But I would say you give me 4 minutes, it's going to change your life at that point.
That's amazing. How did so this pace that you guys have been working with Tony and going to the seminars, has it been this way for like decades now? I mean, does it go all the way back to the mid 90s and you guys
Oh
just
yeah,
started?
because
Yeah.
I remember my first speaking event was Cancun in the mid 90s, and Pete was going up stage to speak to 600 people, and he goes, "Here you go," and I'm like, "What?" I felt like that movie with Mark Wahlberg, the rock star video, where the guy gave him the microphone,
Right.
and I said to him, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Go ahead," and I'm like, "What do you want me to talk about?" He goes, "What do you do for a living?" And I went, "Change people's lives." He goes, "There you go." Okay, well, give me the microphone. It was apparently I was born for this stuff because I ask questions. How many people out there are sick and tired of being sick and tired? How many people out there would love a compelling future? How many people out there, and really all this is NLP, right? Which I didn't know even what it was. I was just asking, hey, what would I like to know?
Right.
What would I like to know? Because we're really good, at telling people what we do in society. I do
Right.
this. We do this. We're so great. We're even good at why. Thank you, Simon Sinek. We're even good at the why.
Right.
But we suck at the how. And the how is something that Egoscue embraced a long time ago. Here's how it affects you. I don't care whether you buy into what I do. I don't even care if you buy into why I do it. I'm saying that because you don't really care about those two. You really don't.
You just want to feel better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, how does it affect me?
Right.
So if we can stop all BSing each other and write a book on how, Simon Sinek, and I'll help you with it.
Right.
Because now it's an idea of what does the customer really want? And so when you have a client who completely becomes like you did, you embrace this and became your own supporter versus I got to rely on an expert. No, I know I'm an expert in what I do. I'm the best at what I do. I can promise you that. But it doesn't matter to anybody but me.
Right. Right. Everyone else is looking at it like, okay, well, maybe you are. How does it benefit me? What do I get out of this? Right.
Look, Messi's the greatest soccer player that's ever played. And God bless Pele, we just lost him. This young football player last night, God bless him. One of the best that's ever played. People care for a little bit of time unless you affect them on the back end. Then they care forever. And that's what Egoscue does. We're in this for the long haul.
That's really cool. What I've noticed, again, for anybody, most people listening to this will be new to this. And what I'll tell you is as we started defining my routine, I would call it, or, my series of exercises that I do, some I felt they'd ask me, like, does this one feel like it's having an impact? Does it not? And we'd add, and everybody's got, I would say, a different recipe for their body, their makeup, their spine, what we've all gotten used to in our lives. And we just kind of kept playing with it. And I'm probably due to go back, honestly, Brian, but it's worked. Like, so I do Egoscue. I'm a little sore right now because we had family over New Year's, and they were set up in my office. And in my office is where I've got all my gear. I've got a couple of yoga blocks. I've got my mat. So I haven't done Egoscue for like 3 days until this morning, and I can feel it. I love it. I sort of get up. It's part of my morning. I almost look at it like someone might that has a early morning yoga practice or something. You can put incantations on, you can put meditative music, whatever, and then it maybe 15 minutes, something like that. And I actually stretch it out because I like it. So I take a full half hour, but if I really needed to bang it out, I can be done in like 15 minutes. So what has evolved? You said when Pete threw you, kind of handed you the mic and said, there you go. And there's a few hundred people that are paying money and you better deliver. What's changed? I mean, you were 25, 30 years old at that time, and you're a little older than that now. What's changed about you as a leader between then and now through this process?
I literally harnessed, like I said before, my attention deficit and my significance. It was no longer a need for more followers. Having said that, I need all of you to follow me on Instagram because I'm going to fight with my son, and my son's thinking he's going to compete with me, and I need him crushed before the beginning of this year.
Nice.
No, but there's really good information on there, from walking on battle ropes, why we do it, to using unconventional workout stuff. What's changed is I've become, I think, a better listener. Listen, when someone asks you a question or they're giving you information, if you're not actively listening and you already have an agenda over here written down going, these are the things that I want, then you really haven't heard what they said because your mind's on the agenda. Well, I'm a chaos kind of person. I did not prepare for something like this to walk in and listen to you. I'll answer any question you want. No problem. You could ask me a difficult question, and I'm going to give you an answer somehow. But it's not like prepping for stuff. And you can always tell when people aren't prepped, and it's not like a true, well, let's put a metaphor for the U.S. government right there, that kind of stuff, when they just throw answers out at you and stuff like that. It's like, come on, give me something that's heartfelt. And so what I think is the client deserves an active listener and deserves a true answer. And Pete Egoscue, Tony Robbins, I've had some serious mentors in my life, to be able to listen to these guys. I was blessed for some reason. Who literally, I'll give you the example. I walked into Tony's house up in Sun Valley one time, and I'm a tornado. I'm here, let's go!
Right.
He literally turned to me, looked at me, did not acknowledge me. God damn it, I'm Brian Bradley. What? You could take that personally. Mm-hmm. Tony, we've known each other for 3 decades. But I interrupted somebody he was talking to. And you want to talk about a learning lesson. I looked over and went, wow, that is amazing. The practice of active listening did not break even when I walked in the door.
Right.
And I'm loud.
Right.
And the minute he finished, I became the next person he was actively listening to. Sure. And that was watching it in play. Pete Egoscue, perfect example. Pete, my hip. Have you ever worked on a degenerative hip? I've worked on tens of thousands of degenerative hips. And then there's that long pause. But I haven't seen yours yet. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look. How does that make you feel when you're the customer, client in pain? Well, he's looked at 10,000, but he's acknowledging that mine might be different.
Right.
I am special, and you are special. I get it.
Right.
But we need to break that identification with that symptom. Your back is out for a reason. Your neck is out for a reason. You have chronic fatigue for a reason. And when we can get your body to serve you, it's a flat out game changer. Be ready.
Well, and I think in what you guys do, you can't shortcut that. Like, because it's not one size fits all. Like, you have to listen. You have to understand, because it's not, every now and then, because my wife went to Egoscue as well, and she got her series of exercises, and every now and then something, I'll go, what are you doing? Because some of ours are the same and some are different, and yeah, it's a different recipe for everybody. So I think that's really cool. And how has that helped you? I know you guys are a franchise owned business for the most part, correct? Are most of your locations franchise owned?
Yeah, probably 90%.
And so do you work as like a mentor to the franchisees, or is there somebody else in that role? And are you more marketing? Like, what does that look like for you? What's your team look like?
Yeah, we have a whole team in place that as soon as somebody says, I filled out the information online and I want to go this direction, mm-hmm. They don't just want to get their, what we call PAS, Posture Alignment Specialist certification, and keep it in their business. And I'm happy if people do that too. But if somebody wants to go to the next level and say, I'd like to own a clinic, tell me what that's about. We unleash the team on you, and say, okay, here's where we go. The NDA signed, all these different things. And it's basically we weed out the person. I'm not joking you. For the sake of our customer base, client base, I weed out the people who want the ROI in 30 days and go, I only want the money. And there are
Right.
people, and don't get me wrong, that's why people go into, more real estate stuff and, apartment housing and all these different things. And I get that. It's all based on what's coming in cash flow per month. With Egoscue, you get paid in multiple ways. One of them is a client got their life back that wasn't compelling and now is. And they're good for 25, 30 referrals. Not because we ask for it, but because I'm not joking when I tell you they're obligated to it in their own
Yeah.
mind.
Oh yeah.
Like what you're doing. It's, look, I just want to spread the word.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to do this. But think about how many hundreds or thousands of people are going to come out of this in the long run, tens of thousands long term, who are going to say, Ken, thank you.
Right.
And Ken's going, don't thank me. I just like spreading stuff that works.
Sure. No, it's amazing. That's very cool. Let's talk about what's different about you physically now than when you started in this. And I'm very big. I guess it's just our age or whatever right now. But I'm not obsessed with. That would be a little strong. But I'm definitely very engaged in how I want to continue to thrive. I want to continue to have great energy. I want to continue to be able to be very physical. Is that on you? I mean, it's on your mind because it's what you do, I'm sure. But how does Egoscue play into all that? Obviously, it's going to help us. But are you seeing people into their 70s and 80s still playing some level of sports, getting around well? Like, what's your take on longevity and how Egoscue plays into it?
Without it, you're in trouble
Yeah.
because you're going to be seeking youth through stem cells, through cold water immersion, through red light therapy, through, PEMF, the biocharger, stuff like that. You're always going to be seeking youth. The problem is there's a drain that keeps draining out the tub and you're trying to fill it up all day long.
Right.
And what we need to do is plug the hole. And what's at the center of that is a minimal dose of Egoscue on a daily basis. I joke with people, only do it on the days you brush and floss your teeth.
Right.
So hopefully everybody does that 7 days a week, right? But even if they're doing 5 or 3 days of Egoscue, 3 days of Egoscue is 156 times per year. You weren't doing it last year. So when we think about this, it's not if you want to get into Egoscue, it's when. So you either get into it when you want to or when you need to. You chose the want, but you kind of needed it, but
Yeah.
you weren't at the desperate point where you needed it. And that's where most of my clients come from is they're like, I'm in trouble. I'm doing this. I waited. So we call them the walking wounded. People don't even realize they're the walking wounded out there. And all you have to do when you get home after listening to this or while you're listening, go upstairs, take your clothes off, stand in front of a full-length mirror, and look at your body. Are your feet pointed straight ahead without you thinking about it? Is one ankle collapsed in more than the other? Do the knees point straight ahead or are they outward or inward? Is the pelvis level? Even if you just take your thumbs and go right in the side of your pelvis and go, well, my right thumb looks like it's higher than the other. Look at your shoulder. That's the easiest thing to see. Is one shoulder lower or higher than the other one? And then if somebody takes, well, I wouldn't do this without your clothes on, but if somebody were to take a picture of you from the side view with a bathing suit on, wait till you see your body from the side view, and then I'll charge your customers with this. I welcome those photographs if you do them. Get them to me on my Instagram, the Brian Bradley or Egoscue Method. We'll take a look at it just to say, here's where your body is, and then here's where it should be. And then I can at least point you toward the pain-free book. I can point you to digital therapy. I can point you, hey, you have a clinic a mile away. This isn't a matter of selling people. It's educating people.
Sure.
So that they can make a better, non-maladjusted decision about their health long term.
Right. And I mean, there's many ways to engage with you guys too. Like you said, there's social media, there's buying a book, and then there's going in and doing appointments, which by the way, I don't remember how many I bought. I think it was like a package of 10. And for what the don't worry about it. I can't believe my guy hasn't chimed in here yet. But again, what is the cost of being down, of being out of work, of just being in pain, right? And so I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just, trying to tell people from my own experience how powerful it was. And I'm due to go back. I feel like I'm a little bit off right now, so I'm going to definitely get back to. I noticed you guys.
Well,
I
well
moved to New York and saw you guys
go
have a
back,
clinic
to
downtown.
cost for a second.
Yeah,
Let's say you came in on day one and said, how much is this?
yeah,
I can say, here's what we cost.
right,
I didn't say how it's going to affect you, negative or positive, down the road at all.
right,
I'm not joking when I tell you this. When you ask me what it costs, you are not asking me about money. You think you are. You're asking me, is it going to help me?
is it worth it? Yeah, yeah,
And when we can say that, I go, I'm going to come back to your cost, Ken. I swear to you, I have paper right here that says, here's what you got to pay.
right,
From an $18 book to 16 visits with us over Zoom or in person. I don't care where you want to do this.
right,
But I'm not even sure that you're ready for us yet.
right,
I'm not even sure that you're in the right mindset. When you're asking me questions about, well, what if it doesn't work? That's a little red flag up in my head that says, ooh, boy, they're not ready yet. Okay, I'm going to give them one more chance. I'm going to ask a better question. Do you believe you're broken, or do you believe that you can heal? Because if you're broken, you're broken. But are you slightly bent and we can heal? No, I think my herniated disc, I need surgery. Okay. So then I'm going to change the way I speak to you. Why don't we train for the sport of surgery, since you already have it scheduled 8 weeks from now? And let's give it a shot that if we get you pain free, meaning you doing the work, you can always reschedule the surgery.
right,
Because the disc was supposed to herniate to protect the hard tissue in the first place. That's why they do that. That's why you get a signal of nerve pain as a gift from your body. It's a, psst, you better wake up and listen. Psst, hey, pay attention, versus boom, here comes the catastrophic injury. Client gets through all that. And I say, where are you going? Well, I'm going to the front. I want to get an appointment. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't you want to know how much it costs? I don't care.
right,
Because the education tells them, no, they really do care. Nobody wants to pay out their nose for anything. But you were asking, do I trust you, Brian, Pete Agoscu, my therapist, my clinic directors? Brian, do I trust Agoscu enough to invest anything in it?
right,
And it's a one-time investment with us. So when somebody says, what's it cost? Per visit? Let's see, if I have clients with me for 20 years, they've done 16 visits times 20 years. That's probably like 10 cents a day.
right,
10
right,
cents a month. And they're like, what?
right,
I'm like, well, when you break it down to long term, because you're always going to be doing something to keep you functional. Because
right,
remember, Agoscu's at the center of all of those other treatments that you're doing to get your body to be chasing youth.
right,
Otherwise, you're gonna get a 40% ROI on your investment in that stuff and wonder why it's not working. And guess what? You got older the next year. And me being 55 this year, I'm telling you, this morning already did the cold water immersion in 34 degrees for 3 minutes. I did the biocharger for 2 sessions last night, which is PEMF. I did the full spectrum infrared for 40 minutes. I did the Normatex last night watching TV with my kid. I'll take him to the gym and do a functional workout. But none of it happens before doing Agoscu first.
right,
Because I want my body in alignment so my lymph system can do its job. Think about the 2023 resolutions people are making. And they're going, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. I'm going to control what I put in my mouth. Great, that's the best way to do it. And not judge it. But I'm going to start working out. Great. On a body that's so far out of alignment, you're going to get hurt 6 weeks in, and then you're in trouble. Then you quit working out, then you gain 40 back.
right.
Well, 2024 is coming. Okay, I'll make a New Year's resolution then, because you spent 9 months rehabbing something that actually was avoidable in the first place.
Right. And you see that so much, especially right now. I mean, I didn't even think about it with the new year, but you guys probably see a lot of people, not so much January 1, but maybe like towards the end of Q1, right? Or in February, like after the New Year's proposal is kind of, or resolution is blown up. So, well, thanks so much. I'm going to definitely make a visit to your New York City. I looked it up earlier. We moved to New York a couple years ago. So I did all my treatments before in Phoenix. And now we're out in New York, and I noticed you guys have a clinic in downtown New York City. So
You'll love those guys. We have one up in near Stanford, Connecticut. What's it called?
Like
Purchase, New York.
Westchester County.
Also, yeah, Westchester on Westchester
Yeah.
Avenue. Guys, look, it's, and anybody who's listening, I told you before, egoscue.com or egoscue method on Instagram, Facebook. And I know you'll post this kind of stuff, but I'm not joking when I tell you on my Instagram it says all DMs answered personally by me. That's what I do. Like, you asked me, what's my job with the company? My job with the company is to be the pretty face. And I'm sorry, that's what you're stuck with. But it's out there really supporting my therapists because we need their help. But more importantly, I need my customers, clients to buy into how this works for them. And then they become literally like raving fans and zealots, and they sell it for us.
Right, right. No, totally makes sense. I got one last question for you. It's an important one that I get across. I know you always come out to like 80s, heavy metal music usually when you're out on stage. So are you a Rush guy or Van Halen? Who do you take in that fight?
100% Van Halen.
I
That
knew it.
wasn't
I
even,
knew it before I asked it. God damn it.
yeah,
Why?
because listen, I'm a huge fan of 80s rock. Like,
Yes.
I joke around about it all the time. And I tried to move over to rap too. Like, back in the day, I'm like, man, NWA, Public Enemy, these guys are hard. They're so good. But I wasn't really into, there's no way the N-bomb or anything like that. All
Right.
this stuff that was coming up. Like, I was brought up with a dad who grew up in Pittsburgh. He was the only white guy befriended by the entire black community because of how fast and big and strong he was playing football. And they were all huge friends. And so we didn't grow up with any racist stuff in our family.
Right.
So I'm going to rap. I'm like, this is huge. I love it. But then Skid Row, Whitesnake, LA
Yeah.
Guns, come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
Tesla, Guns N' Roses hit. And I thought, I'm like, Ma, this is the hardest band to hit in so long. So, but it was all the glam rock. It was all fun with that stuff. And, you know, it was just something that resonated with me a lot more. So when I do come out on stage, you're like, you want to come out to this? And I said, no, I want Panama from Van Halen,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
some Scorpions, something,
Yeah.
Motley Crue, the motorcycle starting,
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that. It was just a fun time in life. And, I always joke with people, if you didn't live in the 80s, you didn't live. So with my kid, he always jokes. He's like, I go, what are you listening to? He's like, oh, I'm listening to Journey. I'm like, oh, yes.
So
I had some
proud.
impact on him because, the music they're growing up with is their own genre of music, whatever they want to listen to. Some people would say, you sound like the old man. You're going, that stuff's crap. But compared to Journey and the riffs of the guitar back in the day when every song had a guitar solo, you're going, what's the guitar solo going to be, And it was just, I thought, more artful back then,
Yeah.
and I granted, I know the people before that would say that's what the 60s were, that's what the 40s were. And I have a brother who's older than I am by like 10 years. And he brought me up with Blue Oyster Cult and Foreigner, Kansas, Styx. So that's really where I learned, really good music. When you're looking at anything from Boston, Foreigner, Kansas, and Styx, you can't go wrong. And then you moved into the 80s rock, which it's very easy to go wrong with 80s music if you pick the wrong ones.
I've seen a ton of those bands. Anyway, man, really good to see you. Thanks for catching up, and thanks for the education. And I'll see you soon at an event, Brian.
Listener, this was a privilege. I will leave you with this.
Yes.
I went to see Morrissey in concert about a month ago in San Diego. Unfreaking real.
Yeah. It
The
was
guy
good.
he's 66 or something crazy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Sounds like he did back in the day. I mean, it's good, good, good stuff.
I've wanted to see him, and he does some weird things because he's a vegan, which is great, and I'm primarily vegan as well. But he does some things like if he hears that there's meat being served at any of the concession stands, he just like won't show up.
Oh yeah.
So I've always felt like buying a ticket to his show is like a roll of the dice, but it's nice
Well,
to
no,
hear
it's
you
this.
deliver.
These are all good. He handles that. PETA's out in the audience and all that stuff. And I'm a vegetarian too. I just let the cow eat the vegetables, then I eat the cow. So it's kind of the same thing. But somehow I got in and was able to listen. And I'll tell you what, he was right on. The stage
Nice.
presence. You'll see it on my Instagram. It's a red post. Look,
Nice.
scroll down about maybe a month ago, maybe 15 posts ago. It's red. The smoke's everywhere. It's good. It was really
Cool.
good.
I'm on it. I'm gonna check it out, man.
Okay.
All right, brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Take care.